So, you've seen all those cargo ships off the coast of California and read the headlines about the supply chain backlog. You've probably even struggled finding things you want to buy. How did this happen? Sure, the pandemic is partly to blame, but there's a bigger issue, one not caused by the virus. And to understand why you can't find toilet paper, or that PlayStation, or even a rental car, that requires us going back in time. This is a photo from a Ford factory that opened in the 1920s in Jacksonville, Florida. They built Model Ts here and had a showroom for finished cars. The factory is still here, but the production, that stopped long ago in the Great Depression. See, we used to produce way more stuff here in America, and that made it easier to get things from point A to point B. There was no shipyard backlog because getting things to you and to me didn't involve a trip across the ocean at all. Of course, over the years, that's changed.
I don't think it would be fair to blame it only on, or primarily on even on COVID. COVID has contributed to a ramped up demand, for sure. In that sense, we can blame it to COVID. It has also created various disruptions in manufacturing overseas. But there are also issues that are independent of COVID that we could have addressed. One is we have an antiquated infrastructure, that is true, particularly in our ports and also in our trucking industry and also in our warehousing. We've done little to address it. And even what's being proposed now is going to make a little dent in the picture.
Professor Avi Fedegrin studies supply chain at Columbia University. He isn't at all surprised that any of this is happening. And when he talks about what's being done to get rid of the backlog, he's talking about an announcement by the Biden administration that the ports, UPS, FedEx, and Walmart will work 24/7 until it's gone.
The commitments being made today are a sign of major progress in moving goods from manufacturers to a store or to your front door.
Here's what you may not know. The federal government is only responsible for things like security and customs at our ports. And while most ports are technically publicly owned and run by a port authority, the ships, the workers, the trucks, and everything else is privately managed. So, outside of encouraging those responsible for the supply chain system to fix it, the government can't really do all that much.
It explains why the administration focused on the little part that they do have control over, which is the ports, where they can influence the protocols and the operations, which is not necessarily the part of the supply chain which is going to matter most.
So, what would matter most? Professor Fedegrin says trucking. Yes, you may have seen video of them lined up outside the ports waiting for goods, but there's nowhere near enough of them on the road. The trucking industry says they need some 80,000 additional drivers, basically an entire football stadium of long haulers who can hit the road ASAP.
We could see it coming prior to the pandemic, and now it's been exacerbated. Every other mode of transportation has a role in making trucking efficient. So they have to make us be able to load and unload quickly and to keep the drivers productive and the companies profitable. A pride-filling job. We just need to find young people and another generation to get behind the wheel.
Truckers alone won't completely fix our supply chain woes, because our supply chain has evolved dramatically since the days of that Ford Model T factory in Florida. Now, we function in a more global society. Take a look at this snapshot from marinetraffic.com. Each of those green dots is a cargo ship. It's proof that we're all dependent on each other. And Professor Fedegrin says the key to managing that global cooperation is finding a balance of what we manufacture domestically and things we outsource offshore.
I think the answer is not one of the extremes of completely offshoring or completely onshoring, but something in the middle. What I mean by something in the middle is something that uses options both on offshoring and options on onshoring, and finds the right way to allocate procurement among those different options. I think that'll be the future, that we will be entertaining a more sophisticated hybrid strategy that naturally complements the advantages of both, and of doing some offshoring complemented with some onshoring.
And that's where we, the consumer, comes in. We are also part of the problem. We love our cheap TVs, t-shirts, and toys. So while producing a good offshore may reduce the price, it may not be the most effective choice overall when you look at other factors like delivery speed or safety. Professor Fedegrin says changing this cheap consumerism mindset will require some education, especially when it's related to price. Hiring thousands of truck drivers, bringing more manufacturing back to America, and changing consumer behavior, those are all long-term changes. But these images of docked ships and parked trucks bring up more near-term concerns, like, will holiday deliveries make it in time?
It remains questionable whether enough will be done to make a big dent before the holiday season.